Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips.
Well, hello listeners, you are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey on
Everybody.
Hello, and on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley. And of course, we are broadcasting from the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. Now, if you are a regular listener, you will know that this is a talk show and we focus on topics that have everything to do with metaphysics and spirituality and self-improvement. And this week we have a fantastic guest and we have a fabulous topic as well. And what we're going to be talking about is your mindset and why your mindset matters and how your entire life is determined by how you think. So we talk about this a lot on the show, how you create your reality by the way that you think and the energy that you hold in your energy field. And so today's guest is Donna Blevins, and she's a mind shift coach and a motivational speaker and an international professional poker player. And she, which I find very fascinating. And
Yes.
she uses her mind shift exercises to accelerate. Well, she used these exercises herself to have a miraculous recovery from a life-threatening stroke that she suffered. And so while she's been a mind shift coach for a really, really long time, she was writing her book and she was feeling a bit frustrated and she wanted some real proof of the power of her techniques. And no sooner as she asked for that it was delivered into her reality, because she had a stroke and she ended up in hospital. And the prognosis was not very good. And she amazed the physicians because she used these techniques to recover very, very quickly. And so she's written a book on the subject. She works with people from wounded warriors, people with PTSD, and helps all sorts of people now to shift their mindset and use these techniques to remain in charge of their reality. So Donna, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Leslie. I am thrilled to be here.
Well, we'd love to hear more about your story, but perhaps before that, you could just start us off by helping us understand what is Mind Shift on Demand.
For many years, people have told us that we need to learn how to change the way we're thinking, and we have to do a lot of practice work. Granted, it takes 40 days before you can create any habit, but with intention, you have the ability to shift the way you are thinking instantly. That's why I called it Mind Shift on Demand. Now you have to go through some processes that retrain your brain. You kind of think of your mental muscles. You know, it's kind of like the biceps, the brain biceps. You know, how do you change the way you think? And what I learned over the years, and I've studied everything. I am a life student. You know, when it took me 48 years to get my doctorate, you know, I just always was going back to school to learn. What I discovered was that the whole key to our thinking was the words that we choose. And what we say creates that underlying power, because our subconscious mind is what controls us. Our subconscious mind is our beliefs and our values. And when we say words that come out of our mouth that are sabotaging us. That's exactly what they're doing. Our subconscious mind is a perfect recorder. It's just a lousy playback system. It plays back when we're unaware. It plays back information that has been highly charged information, hence the PTSD. That's why people get these things that flare up, that cause them stress, because it was anchored with trauma of whatever kind. I talk about 9/11 in the United States with the towers that were fell down in New York City. Nationwide, our country developed PTSD because of how they were glued to the television. They relived that as if they were there. And I realized that we have to shift away from that. We have to become aware of our words when they come out of our mouth and realize that we do have the ability to shift that mindset as long as we become aware of the words and change them. Nearly instantly, we can change the way we're thinking.
Thank you. And, I've never quite heard anyone talk about 9/11 in that way, but you're absolutely right, of course. On a mass, you had the people who were actually involved in that event, but you had this huge mass consciousness event that was not just in the United States, but it was global. And you had most of the people focusing on the fear and the terror of the event, and all together, sending out that vibration in the planet. And so I can see how, on a mass consciousness level, if everyone was educated to consciously alter their thinking, that it would have a very different ripple effect into our world. And so, sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to actually sort of change the subject a little slightly. The other thing that you said is the power of words, because words have energy, don't they? Words have a lot of energy embedded in them. They're highly charged, and the charge in the word can be different, can't it, for different individuals? If you take the word God, for example, that's quite a charged word.
That's right, and I think it has to do with our experiences in relationship to how that word was introduced and embedded in our life, because all the words are embedded. I think what I realized during my stroke experience was how powerful the words have, and how we can actually change those words, and we can literally, and I knew that we had a mind-body connection, but I had no idea that it was so intertwined, because our mind-body-spirit connection was fluid, and the mind affected the body affected the mind, so that we can actually change our body on a cellular level by the way we're thinking. I had no idea that was potentially effective, and that's when I was writing the book Mind Shift on Demand, and I got up from the computer and I'm frustrated, and I looked at my screen, my big screen TV screen that is my retreat where I write, and I stomped my foot and I said, I want something that proves that my mind shift exercise is working. I want proof now. And I stomped my foot and kickstarted a clot, and voila, the universe said, hey, you want this?
Yeah.
And when that stroke hit, I thought, be careful what you ask for, because words are clear and they're pure, and they do have absolute energy and resonance, and we must select them carefully. Now, we are people of habit, and we say things that come out of our mouth on a habitual level, and so we need to interrupt that. That's why I talk about Mind Shift on Demand, because we need to be able to have tools that interrupt those words so that we are self-serving rather than self-sabotaging.
Mm-hmm. So
it's interesting. The meaning of words is only the meaning that you give them. Like, if we believe, like you were talking about the tower, if we believe in some countries that this is a good thing, it's a good thing, right? It's what they believe. It's very interesting. It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah, and I always look at any situation and find the good in that. And looking back at the towers, you go, how in the world can you find any good in that? And the good that I find in that is that I believe it was a trigger for uniting Americans on a not just country level, but worldwide. I think it helped us to pull together more than anything else has in centuries.
Yeah, I can see that, and there's a lot of things happening in our reality of late that, even these things that appear to polarize, they're making people question their choices, whether it's a political thing or whether it's the Me Too movement. Now, I wanted to ask you more about your experience with your stroke. And one of the things that occurred to me to ask you is, so when you had your stroke, you lost your words, you lost your speech, and you had to use these, mind shift techniques to help you find your words again. And I wonder, so in a way, your mind became a blank slate. What was there in a way was, I don't know whether it was wiped clean, but I'm wondering whether when you reclaimed your words, in that reclaiming of them, did you, we were talking about how the words are charged with energy. Did you change the energy in the words when you reclaimed them? Did you reclaim them as they were?
Now that's a new thought. That's a thought that is the first time I've considered that. What I know is that as I was looking for the words, because I had the words in my mind, I could think the words. It was that I was unable to say the words. Right. So I could think them. The clean slate was in my mind's eye. I was able to think fluidly.
Did you know you knew the meaning as you did before of the words that you could think?
What I've discovered over the last 5 years since I had the stroke in Halloween, oh gosh, 2013, Halloween. This is my mask. My poker face, what can I say? Mm-hmm. And it's such a novel thought that I'm just pondering right now as you ask it. So when I reclaimed the word, or was reintroduced to it, or in essence what happened was when I found the word files, I'm going, where's that word, so I can put it in the file. It's like a file folder on your computer, and I needed to put that in the folders where I could speak them. That was where I was restoring them, because in my mind's eye, when I said, where are my words, I saw this huge room that was like a huge corridor with 4-drawer filing cabinets on either side, and the drawers were open, and all the file folders were in the middle of the floor piled high. And I actually stepped back from this room, and I looked up in my mind's eye, and it said word room. And I went, well, okay. So I made a list of, what would I need to speak if I were learning a foreign language. And it was, in essence, I'm relearning a foreign language. And so I said, where is that word? Now, it's interesting because when we say, where is that, rather than saying, I can't find that word, if we clamp it down with I can't, or I forget, or I forgot, those are actually 3 words that I have eliminated from my vocabulary, because when I said that, you on this call, you don't see me tapping on my wrist, but as I'm saying I can't, I forget or I forgot, I'm actually tapping, because what I'm doing is I'm canceling that. Because I want my subconscious to know that that's something I'm talking about rather than owning that word. So when I would find a word file, the first word file I found, by the way, was hello, because that's the first word that you would want to say. And in my mind's eye, I get to this file folder and I open it up, and it's like a child's book with pop-ups, and hello popped up, and I thought, oh, well, that's cool. And I said, what does that sound like? And all of a sudden, a button appeared at the top right of the folder, play me button, and I pushed it, and it said, hello, was my voice. I said, well, that's how it sounds. Do I say it differently sometimes? Another button popped up, and I pressed that, and it said, hello. I thought, well, that's cool. Do I say it other ways? Another button popped up, and I pushed that, and it said, hello. And I'm going, that's my voice. And I started doing this. And I said, okay, I'm gonna file that back into where it belongs. These 4-drawer filing cabinets, I saw them as the words that I can speak. So you ask if some of the words I was unaware of, even today, seldom happens, but it still does. And it's actually fun, because I go through a process of redefining the word. I'll ask my husband, help me find a word. Or standing on stage, I've told people that I'm going to do this. I'm saying, I may temporarily mislay a word when I'm talking. Will you please help me find that? And they're going, sure, we'll help. And so I'll say, okay, the first word that it happened with was 2 weeks after the stroke. I was in my first live one-to-one group coaching call. I had about 12 people on, like an instant teleconference call line. They didn't see me. And only 2 of them knew that I'd had a stroke, because I didn't want to let you to get out there. You know, on social media, when you see where people are sick, people talk about being sick, and I think that makes them sicker, because they're sending energy to the sickness rather than sending healing, light, and intention of being well, rather than focusing on the sickness. So the first word that I asked for assistance was iceberg. I'm talking about how our mind is like an iceberg. Our subconscious mind is that part that we don't see. It's like an iceberg. You see only a tiny part. That's our conscious mind above there. And I'm looking for the word, and I said, okay, now imagine this. What is very cold and floats, and you only see a little bit of it? And 3 or 4 people said, oh, that's an iceberg. So I actually found a spot on my arm where I was actually going to re-anchor that word. And I get, iceberg, yes, the iceberg, and it floats. And we need to say something, do something, reacquaint with it for about 6 times before we can own it. 6 is actually the number of learning and education, and however you learn best, it's repetition that's important. But it's important, rather than saying iceberg, 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 it's important to do it in a way that you own it and you love it. And you might, like, Leslie, I'm so pleased to be here on the Dr. Leslie Phillips show. And what happens is, when you speak those words over and over soon after meeting someone, if you do it 6 times, you will likely have their name come up. So the question was, did I redefine the words? I think I became reacquainted with them, because I've actually heard words since then that, when I first hear them, mean nothing. And I go, oh, wow, that's odd. And I'll ask my husband or somebody else, I'll say, that's an odd word to me. Would you please define it? So I think the whole process of saying the stroke is actually a blessing, because it has allowed me to be, to be broken and to be okay with that, and learn how to deal with self-repair. I feel like a maintenance man.
Well, thank you so much. it's
I know
absolutely.
that feeling because
It's okay, Corey. It's just that we're at the time for an advertisement. Gonna have to cut that out
yeah, I
now.
just want to say one quick thing.
Go
I
on.
know that feeling because I'm a North American living with a person from Liverpool, and she uses a lot of words that I look at her and go, I don't understand.
Well, on that note, listeners, we're just going to take a break and for a few advertisements, and then we'll be back. And it's absolutely fascinating, and I'm looking forward to talking more to Donna about mind shift. Welcome back, listeners, to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and this evening's guest, Donna Blevin, who has written a book which is about mind shift on demand. And she is helping us understand how to change our thoughts to change our reality. And before the break, she was telling us a fascinating story of when she had a stroke and she had to find her words again. And I think it's amazing. And I want to ask you all about mind shift now, but before I do, there was one question I was kind of dying to ask you before we ended the break, which was, that whole process of refinding your words. What is your perspective on what was happening there? Because it sounded to me like it was your higher self or your inner voice guiding and communicating with the body personality self that was sitting, within the body that had a stroke. What's your way of explaining that process?
I believe that a circle has been closed, successfully closed. And this is the first time I've shared this publicly, is that when I was 6 years old, I had tuberculosis.
Mm.
And, I'm 6 feet 5 inches tall, and they say that tuberculosis stunts your growth. And when they did a biopsy, there was so much infection in the lower left lobe that they took that out. It was so all around the heart, and my heart stopped. My heart stopped for 6 minutes. And if your heart stops for more than 4 minutes, you will have brain damage. Mm. And during that time, people talk about near death, but there was nothing near about this. I was completely there, aware, and absolutely in joy. I was no longer a 6-year-old. I was 143. I was completely aware. I was plugged into the great universal library in the sky, whatever that is. I was there. There wasn't a being. It was light, and it was joy. And it's interesting because when I came back, I didn't speak for 2 weeks because I was afraid to speak, because I knew that if I shared what had happened to me, that they would put me in a mental institution. That was in the 1955. You can do your math, the relationship to my age. And it happened in 1955. Now, the reason I say the stroke completed the circle is that I was completely aware, and this awareness seemed to diminish as the hormones took over. Mm. And by the time I was 16, I actually shared this experience with some, but virtually no one over my lifetime. But I went through a tremendous amount of trials and tribulations throughout my life. And I believe that I did that because I needed to experience it. So when somebody brings it up and they're whining about it, I can say, okay, I've been there, done that. Now let's get on with it and figure out how we can fix that. And literally, the types of things that I have experienced, if I started listing them, you'd go, how could one person deal with that? Mm-hmm. But I believe that what the stroke, you ask if there was a higher power, I believe that during that time I was able to reconnect with that awareness. And interestingly enough, things that I had over my life, things that I have forgotten on purpose and refused to talk about because of the trauma, have now surfaced in an okay way for me to remember them without re-experiencing them. So you ask if it was this higher power interceding. I believe I've been there before, and it was my opportunity to reconnect, and my awareness now is, it seems to be on a different level than it was before the stroke. Even though on a physical level, I may have a few glitches, kind of like, your car that's got 250,000 miles on it. But I am proud of where I am. I'm proud of going through that experience. And my husband insisted that I share that, finding the words, where are my words, and the word file with his shrink. And what his shrink told me was that I had retrained my brain how to rewire the neural pathways. Mm-hmm. Because it was unnecessary to go find each word. It seemed that my brain did it for me.
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic, and it's absolutely fascinating. I could even query you more about it, but we should probably switch a little bit and start to ask you about how all of these amazing experiences that you've had, how you're now able to use them to help other people. So can you maybe give us some examples, either about how you work with other people using Mindshift On Demand, or even some examples of how it might be able to help the people listening to the show?
Would you like me to share a Mindshift exercise with the listeners?
Yes.
I'll share what's been called my signature Mindshift exercise, and I've actually been told by the person who was the final editor of the book, who actually emailed me 3 years ago after I shared this on a webinar, and he said that I had saved his life. And I emailed back. You see that in print, and it doesn't mean as much. You want to know what it is. And he emailed back and said that he had a pistol and one shell, and he had put it on his coffee table, and he was ready to use it. And he opened up his email to send a goodbye to his family. And I must have said something in the subject line of the replay, and he clicked on that. And when he got to the part about this Mindshift exercise where it says, first of all, forgive yourself for where you are, he said he simply fell down on his knees and started crying. And the Mindshift exercise asks you, first of all, to bring up something that has been unpleasant or traumatic, or something that you really puts you into a place of a not okay place. And Leslie, is it okay if I ask you to be the one that I walk through this?
Yeah, it's okay. And so I've obviously done a lot of work on shifting my own beliefs over the years, but tell me if this would work. I do have a little bit of issue with my digestive system at the moment.
Okay, so let's bring that up. And so what I'd like for you to do, first of all, is to rate where you are with that. If, like on a pain scale, if 0 is it's not there, and 10 is it's so bad I need to go to the ER, or maybe it's how concerned you are about it. It has to do as much with how concerned you are about it rather than what it is.
Okay.
So rather than how much it physically hurts. So on this scale, where are you? What number are you before we start about your anxiety about it?
3, just because I know that if I focus on healing it, I can, but 3. But I've been ignoring it or resisting it.
Okay. Okay, so what I'd like for you to do is close your eyes and ask that to show itself. And first of all, it is, as I said, I want you to forgive yourself for actually ignoring it. And that's the forgiveness. Whatever there is about forgiveness, just forgive yourself. The first step is to forgive yourself for where you are, because it takes our self-forgiveness that is so powerful and so potent. So forgive yourself for where you are. And closing your eyes, I want you to name it. Give this emotion a name, the situation a form, and ask it to show itself. Do you see it in your mind's eye? Do you see an entity? Do you see the words? Do you see something in your mind's eye right now?
I do.
Okay, good. Now that you see it, it is now finite. It is no longer around you and encompassing you or chewing at you like a Pac-Man. It is there. It is inside your mind's eye, and it's finite. It now has boundaries. The third step is I want you to in your mind's eye, step back and just observe. Look at it. And as you do, what happens is you are disconnecting from that. You're severing the energy that you're sending. You're no longer fueling that, whatever that is that's causing that anxiety or that whatever it is that's causing you strife. You're severing that. And as you ask it to take a form, it became finite. You step back, and as you are doing that and observing it, it's moving away from you and it's becoming smaller. And as you sit there in your mind's eye and just watch, it moves a little further away and it loses power because its fuel has been disconnected. As you look at it, I'd like for you to say with me, isn't that interesting? Say that out loud. Isn't that
interesting?
Excellent. Say it one more time with more feeling.
Isn't that interesting?
That's right. Now what I want you to do is open your eyes, look up and to your right, pivot your chair 45 degrees to the right and continue looking up. Pivot your entire chair, your body to the right, continue looking up. Now what I want you to do is ask, where would I rather be? Ask it out loud.
Where would I rather be?
Ask it with more feeling.
Where would I rather be?
Okay, come back to me now. Now, I'd like for you to rate where you are with how you feel about that right now. What number?
Well, I'm okay. I'm feeling amused. Am I rating how amused I feel, or do you want me to? So if I was tuning into a disturbance before we started, I'm now tuning into my amusement. So what should I be rating?
Whatever. If you started out, you said, well, it's about a 3. And so you've actually gone down to virtually nothing in despair because you're in amusement.
Amusement is at a 10.
So that's a positive 10. So that's the amusement. So that was effective. And you were able to shift away from that. Yes?
Yeah, because I shifted into amusement.
Yeah, and that's a fun place to be. Now, interestingly enough, when you ask where would I rather be, it's unnecessary for your conscious mind to answer that, because when you ask a question properly, I call it a subliminal task. When you ask a question properly, you have given your subconscious mind a task, and it will go about answering it. And as it does, it's actually a code modifier. It actually goes about rewriting the code in the subconscious. It starts rewriting those patterns. Simple questions asked properly are powerful and help to shift us nearly instantly. Now, interestingly enough, I'm going to get the if out of here, when you start stepping through this very simple mind shift exercise on a repetitive basis, let's say you did it for 7 days in a row. If something comes up and it's disturbing you, you can literally do this. Just that is enough of a trigger that your mind can shift through those 7 steps instantly without you needing to step through them. Just a isn't that interesting? Or isn't that just isn't that amusing? You can rephrase. You like the amusement is a place that is good for you. So you might want to do, isn't that amusing? You can change those words, but it's so powerful.
Great.
Well, one of the things that you do there is very powerful. What you do when you shift to the right, what you're doing is you're bringing in new emotions, new thoughts, new feelings. When you're remembering older feelings, people will look to the left. So you notice when people talking about their sadness or their grief or their unhappiness, they look this way. When you look to in NLP, when you look to the right, either somebody's not telling the truth or they're developing a new emotion, a new feeling, a new conduit into where they want to go. And you've been able to take that and structure it around a wonderful belief system. Change. That's lovely that you've been able to do that. It's wonderful.
And
thank you.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to validate what Corey says, because the energy I was looking at was old past time energy. And when I switched over there, it wasn't there. All that was there was amusement. And in fact, where would I rather be? There wasn't an answer. The answer was just to be amused. That was the answer. There was no answer about, logical, mental answer to the question.
I love that, and Corey, you're exactly right. And by the way, you can clip that out. When I said Corey, you're exactly right, because you might want to clip that out and put it in your phone. You're exactly right when you said when you look over to the right, you're accessing that. It's actually you're accessing the right hemisphere of your brain, which is a creative part, and that's your creative hemisphere. I didn't mention that because I wanted to keep it simple, but that's exactly what's happening. Because when we look to the left, we're actually accessing files, memory files, and there are all kinds of files. They're not good files. There are a lot of crap over there. It's the mind trash. I don't know about you, but it's kind of like my house. I need to throw things away and figure out what I want to keep and what I want to I call it toss the trash is one of the chapters in the book, and it's about getting rid of that mind trash in a fast and loving way.
Yeah, many years ago, I can't remember, I had gone through a bankruptcy long before Leslie and I met in '96, and I was about a year into the bankruptcy because you have to wait so many years and things like that for credit. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine who was a coach, and she said, we were talking, she said, what's one thing you'd like to have? I said, well, I'd like to have a house. I'd like to have my own home again. And I said, but it's not possible. And so she actually walked me through something very similar. She says, okay, so she talked about it a little bit. Okay, she said, now turn and look to the other side when you say that. And I looked at the other side and went, it's possible. And it was really interesting. It wasn't a conscious thing. It was completely subconscious. And within 1 year, I was living in my new home with a mortgage. And I was in bankruptcy. It's amazing what your system like that will do.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So we must take another break. Listeners, you're listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and with our guest, Donna Blevins. And we've been talking about Mind Shift on Demand and how to instantly change your state of mind from one thing to another. We'll be back after these few messages. Welcome back, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and this evening's guest, Donna Blevins. And Donna is a mind shift coach and a motivational speaker, and she's an author, and she's a professional poker player. And she's been sharing some amazing things about her life journey and some of the experiences that she's been through that have led her to developing very powerful techniques to help you shift your mind. And so I wanted to ask you, you talked before the break about two of the techniques. So I believe one of them was, isn't that interesting? And the other was toss the trash. I read about another technique that I'm curious to ask you about called the egg. What is the egg?
Interestingly enough, the isn't that interesting, and the egg over the years have been many of my coaching clients' favorites. Let's look at, in relationship to the egg, and by the way, when I was working, I've been working for more than 20 years in the poker industry, and let me say that there are people from all across cultures at the poker table. But what I've discovered is there are fewer people that are enlightened and willing to talk about things things might sound woo-woo to them, and things that I have to let you know that I am practical, I am logical, I'm a number cruncher. And for me to end up with mind shift exercises that I've been able to take Eastern philosophies and combine them with like Western medicine, and it's interesting how I've taken everything that I've learned, and well, I'm going around in circles. Let's face it, nothing is created nor destroyed. We literally repurpose the information that we have. And everything that I studied, Corey had mentioned NLP, and I studied NLP in the early 80s when it first came out. And the egg has to do with, first of all, we need to understand that we are an energy field. Mm-hmm. That's what we are. We are an energy field, and that energy field goes beyond our skin. Mm-hmm. And we have an aura, an energy field around us that can be photographed. And some people can see that aura, can see that energy field. I know that you can feel it, even if you are an unbeliever. If someone walks up behind you quietly in even a noisy room and their energy field touches your energy field, you will become aware of them. You will know that they're there. Sometimes you jump when you know somebody's there without them touching you. So acknowledge that we are an energy being, and we have this energy field around us. What happens, however, is that our energy field absorbs. It's like a sponge. It absorbs the energy that we come in contact with, so we need to protect that. What I'd like for you to do is to imagine that you are going to install an egg around your energy field that is your shape, whatever that is, and it moves with you. It's not an egg like Humpty Dumpty, that is the shape of an egg, but it's your shape, mm-hmm. and it moves with you. And I'd like for you to put a mirrored surface on the outside of that egg. And I'd like for you to intentionally acknowledge that that mirrored surface will reflect negativity while allowing positivity to flow through it and to it. It is a protection shield that is profound. I've been in hospitals so much with my family, and I learned about the concept of the egg in the 70s. And I wouldn't go to shopping centers, because when I went to shopping centers, I would get sick. I would get there and I would have a headache in no time, and I would be nauseated, and I was, cranky. And I just hated shopping. And sometimes I say unfortunately, I was introduced to the egg, and now I can shop and spend a lot of money. But I was introduced to the concept of the egg. And so I fashioned it and reframed it over the years until it's, has my flavor on it. Mm-hmm. And it is profound, because when you consciously install this egg, right now, if you choose to do that, that egg can stay with you for the rest of your life. However, our body is our vehicle, our mind is the driver, mm-hmm. and you got to know that any physical vehicle needs maintenance. Mm-hmm. So the however is you need to check in with that egg periodically. Daily is a good thing. And get into just a really quiet space and look around and say, how's my egg? Are there any cracks? Because even though it's flexible with you, if you have an emotional outburst for whatever reason, anxiety or anger or frustration, and if that's a burst, you can literally crack that egg from the inside out, like pow. And you need to fix the egg. Mm-hmm. So how do you do it? When I first thought about the concept of repairing the egg, I would think, well, here, can I just think it well? No, that wasn't working for me. So what can I do? Well, I thought, what can I use? Well, the outside is reflective. So in my mind's eye, I went and got shiny duct tape. And I would take it and I would put it over that crack. And it was sealed. And then I would relax and just vision it. And then I would look back and voila, it had healed. It was like giving it a Band-Aid so it could heal itself. And so it was an astonishing process. Is that I believe that anyone who is listening has consciously installed an egg on this call. That egg can be with them. It's mm-hmm. not necessary to reinstall it every day, but it is important to put yourself on a maintenance system so you check in and repair.
Yeah, no, that's
just
fantastic.
Like your car.
That's wonderful. And it's a way of teaching people to work with their energy field, with their auric field, and start taking conscious control of it. So it's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that technique. Corey?
So that's a wonderful technique. What would you do? How do you handle the egg when there are people that you want to come in within your field?
You're not the egg is installed with the intention of repelling only negativity. So the positive has no barrier.
That makes sense. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I was following you as you're explaining it, and I can see it's a great technique. I actually was doing it. I know I didn't have my eyes closed, but
me too.
I mean, I teach people about aura awareness and how to protect their aura and how to consciously work with their aura, and so I would just validate that it's a great technique. The one that you shared with us, it's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, my husband is one who, over these years, he is, and I don't believe that'll work kind of guy. Mm. And I'll say, that's fine. You don't have to believe it. Just think about it. And in reality, he doesn't believe it will work, but he installed his egg and he uses the egg all the time. And he tells other people about the egg, even though he says, this doesn't work, but here, put it on anyway. Yeah. So you don't have to believe it. You just have to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And no, I liked your story about the supermarket because, I also, it's not my favorite place to be. And I really have to ground myself. I really have to pull my energy field in and really just embody every cell in my body to even be in in a supermarket. So, and I'm sure there's plenty of people listening who feel that way. So,
unless it's clothes shopping.
Well, unfortunately, we're sort of getting close to the end, so we should probably ask you a few questions.
We still have five.
Yeah, we do. We should probably ask a few questions beyond the book, because I believe you have a masterclass where you teach people the techniques that are in the book. Is that right?
Yes, it's a 40-day program, because as I mentioned before, it takes 40 days to create the habit of anything. And I've created subliminal questions that walk people through processes. Mm-hmm. And I realized that we don't have to sit down and meditate for an hour. Meditating for an hour is a wonderful thing. I'm not dissing that. Please understand. But what I'm saying is that we rarely have that time at our fingertips. But everybody has 10 minutes. Everybody deserves to spend 10 minutes on them. And I had to figure out how I could share the process over a 6-week program. And I decided to put together a master class where each week I would explain an exercise, a mind shift exercise. And I'm also going to be doing question and answers, and I call them one-on-one group coaching calls, because rather than need to work directly with one person, I really want to work one with many, because I believe this message can dramatically change people's lives. And I want to get it out to as many people as possible. And so I have the master classes coming up, and I have a theoretical launch, if you can bless it. It's going to be the last Sunday in January in 2019. So let's vision that. You can send the energy to that. And kind of like my mother is 92, by the way. She's Mama Peggy, and she is my touchstone. She's the one, by the way, that tells me she knows nothing about poker, but she tells me when I go to compete in a poker tournament that I need to always, when I get upset, get up, go outside, and go hug a tree. That's what my mother tells me, and that's what I do, and it's astonishing because it is grounding.
Yeah, I love hugging trees. Oh, and how can our listeners, if they want to connect with you, how can they? Do you have a website that you can share?
It's easy to remember, mindshiftoндemand.com. That's the site of the book, and that's where I want to start building my tribe, because that's, even though I'm in the poker industry, and my poker site is biggirlpoker.com for obvious reasons at 6'5", but I really want, even, by the way, my poker coaching clients were the ones that did a pre-read on the book before it was published, and they said, take the poker stories out. And I said, what? And they said, take the poker stories out because we want people to understand that this has nothing to do with the game, even though you've been involved in the game and use game theory a lot in the mind shift exercises. But we use this in everything we do, and it's improved our life exponentially. We use the exercises all the time, in relationships, at work, when we play, when we're in trauma. It helps to interrupt that fight, flight, or freeze syndrome. And I did. I trimmed it. So mindshiftoндemand.com. And by the way, go to mindshiftoндemand.com, and on that page you can opt in for a 4-minute mind shift exercise. This is one that I just shared with you. Isn't that interesting? And a lot of people have said that they love to have it in a 4-minute module because they can re-listen to it and redo it. The only difference is that I didn't have in that was recorded during a coaching call before I had people rate it, because I needed some proof. And the only way we need something quantitative, and evaluating where we are by rating it, with 0 being it's not hurting at all and 10 it's awful, whatever this is, like a pain scale. You need to rate where you are before you start and rate where you are later to have some validation that it's working. Mm-hmm. So mindshiftoндemand.com is the best way to find me.
Great. And is there any last message you would like to give our listeners? Anything that we haven't asked you about, you wished we had, or what would you like to say?
I would like to say that the words you choose set yourself up for either success or failure. And when something comes out of anyone who's listening, when something comes out of your mouth, I want you to know that rather than hating yourself for saying that, if it's so bad that you've said it, all you need to do is to add 2 magic words: until recently. That's a code modifier that completely cancels what you just said without being judgmental.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I love the cover of your book, by the way. Listeners, if you haven't seen her book, it shows the cogs in the mind going round. Anyway, we do have to end the show right now. We could go on talking forever, I think. But Donna, thank you so much for being on the show. And listeners, you've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie Corey and Donna Blevins. And we've been learning about Mind Shift on Demand.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. You can also find the questions that were asked during this show at the website on our free card reading podcast page, where you'll find a full list of them. Come back again.